What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Lights Out Fantasy Football Podcast, Process Over Results. Today is the live show. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Obviously, we're here a day early, and the reason we did that is because the games start on Saturday this week, so we wanted to give you guys time. If you can't make it here live, at least you guys can listen to the podcast because I upload that shortly after. So alongside of me, I have my usual guys with me. We're back to normal this week. I have my usual co-host, Joe Holka from 4for4 in Fantasy Labs, and I have our weekly guest, Jake Ciely from Roto Experts and Fantasy Sports Network. Joe, what's going on, man? I know you had a massive week. Joe won the 4for4 tournament. I know you had your best week of the year, 2 weeks ago. How did you do last week?
Yeah, it was solid for sure. 2 weeks ago was probably a little bit better just because I had a rough start to my day, but it ended up turning out really well. Had a ton of breeze and cooks, and could have honestly been massive if I didn't have my friend Antonio Gates in some lineups.
Oh, Antonio Gates. But I'm sure we're going to talk about him today. Jake, how was your trip? Was this the trip that you didn't invite me to? Is that the one you went to?
It's the trip that had nothing to do with you. That's why. It's because it was a company Christmas party and company work event, that type of thing. And yeah, it was a good trip. A terrible time getting home because that whole inch and a half of snow means an 8-hour delay in LaGuardia Airport trying to get home. So I was pretty miserable. I forgot because I was sitting in the airport all day long to put Robbie Anderson in one of my seasonal leagues and ended up having to start Corey Coleman and lost by 4 points. So that didn't go well. And then I didn't play a ton of DFS because I basically spent the entire day in the airport watching BoJack Horseman. So
that's brutal, man. I hate sitting at airports. I don't like traveling at all. Like, honestly, I used to like traveling when I was a kid, but now that I get older, I hate it. I really do. And I travel more than I ever have, which it really sucks. I hate turbulence. I just want to
really,
take me away and forget what I'm doing. I had to try and get over a mental gap of when there's turbulence on a plane, because I panic. I have this inside panic attack, and I just tell myself I'm in a car and we're going over a bumpy road and we're okay. But yeah, I definitely have a panic
next
attack.
event I can invite you to, I'll hold you on the plane. How about that?
Sweet. That's a deal. I'm going to hold you to that. Or you could fly me first class. Maybe it's not as bumpy up there. I don't know. I got to live that Smiz life. Al, if you're listening.
That's those type of planes we don't get to see.
Yeah, we're not there yet. We haven't won $1 million yet. Speaking of $1 million, if you guys are big DFS players, I want to let you guys know about our sponsor today, rototracker.com/POR, as in process over results. Guys, this is a tool for all you DFS players that are starting to get serious, that want to find out exactly what it is. If you want to get a grip on your game selection and what you're good at, what you're not good at, instead of tracking it yourself, all you do is you create a free account with that link I just gave you, and you go in. It imports your DraftKings lineup, your FanDuel, whatever you guys want to do. It instantly analyzes, I think it's up to, 150 lineups. And then if you want to do more than that, then you can basically upgrade your subscription with them. But don't forget, guys, rototracker.com/POR. And thanks to our special membership, if you ever upgrade, you get an automatic 10% off. So for those of you that really like digging into your data, RotoTracker, it has the most comprehensive filtering report functionality in the market. And although it's simple to use, it gives you that analytical punch, and it breaks it down for you and lets you know exactly where you need to improve and where you can get better, as well as what you're doing well. So you may want to play more games if it's cash or tournament. But we do want to thank them for being our sponsor, and thank you guys for continued support going to that link, because what it does, it shows them that we're sending people their way and they want to continue to support our show. So as we usually do, what we're going to start with Mr. Joe Holka. We're going to talk about some game selection. And obviously, Joe, this week's a little bit different. We have, the Thursday game tonight, which is weird because we usually do the show after Thursday, so we never talk about it. And honestly, it's kind of a weak game on Thursday. But I think the area we're going to focus on this week is Saturday through Monday slate. I don't really want to do the 12 games on Saturday. I'd rather do the 15-game slate. I don't know if you're with me or if you think it's better to play the other slate.
Yeah, I'm with you. I play pretty much every slate every week anyway, but I think the main decision that most people are going to have to make this week as far as game selection goes is if you want to play the main event championship tournaments on DraftKings. So there's 5 contests with a prize pool of $500K or more. So I thought today I would just kind of break down a couple of those. Starting at the low stakes, there's a $4 front 4 championship, and it's a really large field, 450,000 people, but it does have a $100,000 prize up top. It pays out 1.6x multiplier to roughly 26% of the field, but it does have a rake of 17.6%, which is obviously really high. So, but that's pretty much your only option at the low stakes if you want to mass multi-enter. And then all the way at the other end of the spectrum, there's the big $4 million main event, which is a field of just 2,900 people, but first place pays out $1 million. So it's a really steep buy-in of 1,500. So unless you lucked out into a ticket from a satellite or have a really large bankroll, it's kind of hard to recommend that to the majority of our listeners. But it pays out just 17.2% of entrants as well, which is extremely low for DraftKings, and you don't even 2x your buy-in. So definitely some risk there. If I'm going anywhere, it's probably still the Wildcat at the 333 buy-in or the $150 power sleep. We've talked about the advantages of those pretty much every week, but definitely not going to harp on anyone who wants to kind of take their shot at that massive upside, and especially in a small field for the main event. If I had the bankroll for that, I'd definitely be firing at it for sure. Won't fault anyone for kind of taking their shot, but as long as they understand what the risks are with such a large buy-in.
Yeah, well, no, it's funny because I've actually had a lot of people reaching out to me, guys, and I don't know if you guys have gotten the same thing on Twitter, but a lot of people have been reaching out to me saying that they've benefited from the show an awful lot, whether it be the weekly show that I do or this show. We had someone that told me he actually DM'd me and sent basically saying that he won a qualifier and he's playing in a massive tournament, and he asked me for a few articles that he could look at, anything extra that he could do for the week. So Joe, I actually sent him over your articles that you did for Roto World this offseason in regards to team totals and stacking and things like that, because those are two of my favorite articles that I read all off season. So
awesome. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, but I'm definitely happy, with the support that the show has gotten. I want to thank Matt Harmon. Matt gave me a shout out on Twitter last night saying basically to check out the show. So we do appreciate it. If you guys are listening, thank you. And thank you for Rummy filling in for Jake last week. Jake, I know you were having a conversation with Rummy on Twitter right before we got on, weren't you?
Yeah, I smelled what he left for me, apparently, when we were sitting in the seat. So it's still toasty and warm with a strange odor.
That's not ideal. That's definitely not ideal. But one thing that is ideal, Jake, it's going to be your play of the week. And so what we do every single week that Jake's here, we do Jake's ace of the week. And Jake is basically one of the best football analysts over at Fantasy Pros. He's been there running. So what we do, this is a player that you want to have overexposure into in your lineups. Whether I don't really care if that player is 40% owned in tournaments. If Jake tells you to play him, you should have him in more than 40% because you want to be overexposed in the field. So Jake, who is your ace of the week that you want to get into as many lineups as possible?
Yeah, I missed last week. I would have loved you know what it was. I was doubling up on Brandon Cooks last week.
Yeah, Joe and I were on Brandon Cooks.
Whoa.
And Breeze.
Let's not forget you tried to talk me out of Breeze and Cooks in our lineup.
No, that was Rummy. That was Rummy.
No. Let's check the tape.
I was going Flacco. Yes, I was going to go Flacco.
I've gone 1 week and you guys can't get along.
I was going Flacco. That's 100% true. I was going to go Flacco and Perriman, and then he said Breeze and Cooks. We talked about Breeze and Cooks though, that we liked them though.
We did. I agree, but I did veto your Perriman Flacco in favor of Breeze Cooks. But both of us also.
Were you on McCoy and Tate too?
So I played a bit of McCoy, but we didn't have him in our lineup, did we? Oh, we did actually. I think. Yeah,
we did. No, we didn't have Tate. He was asking about Tate.
And we didn't have Freeman.
Tate. Well, anyway, so this week brought those up because I'm not going to any of those positions, and I'm not going to quarterback either. I'm going straight to tight end because every single one of my lineups starts with Cameron Brate and ends with Cameron Brate because his price is ridiculous for what Cameron Brate has been doing. Just talking about points per game on the season, total, whatever you want. So since week 3, there's only 2 tight ends that have been better than Cameron Brate. And actually since week 9, there's none. And I don't care if you want, again, total points or per game. Cameron Brate has been the best tight end since week 9. I don't understand the pricing. I don't know what DraftKings is thinking. Heck, FanDuel doesn't even have him that high. I really don't understand this situation. Maybe they're looking at the first matchup and saying, hey, this game was low scoring. It could happen again. Let's not kid ourselves. It's in New Orleans. It's at home. It's on the track. That first game was out without Michael Thomas, which I think changed the landscape for the Saints in a huge way, let alone the fact that the Buccaneers are going to have to keep up in this. And what I keep saying about Brate all year long is he's at the top of the team when you talk about red zone targets, red zone receptions, right up there with Mike Evans and red zone touchdowns. And I'll go back to it again. Since week 9, no tight end is better than him.
Now, are you guys concerned about how they've been playing lately against tight ends like New Orleans? Like they did shut down Brate in week 14, and I know Brate was like a high. He was one that week. The stack was Cameron Brate and Jameis Winston. A lot of people were playing them in week 14. Are you guys? So I mean, I was going through the Saints, and believe me, I saw the price too, and I was kind of shocked considering how he's been playing as of late. but I think New Orleans has been a little bit better than people think this year on defense. That's my only concern.
They've definitely been better than people think on defense. They're actually pretty good against other teams' number one wide receivers, as a matter of fact. I think I would have to double check, but I think Demaryius Thomas is the only number one wide receiver that's even scored a touchdown against them. Most of them have been number twos and threes that have abused them. So there's some concerns out there for the Mike Evans. But when it comes down to Cameron Brate, it really comes down to the fact of what do the Buccaneers have? They have Mike Evans and Cameron Brate. There's not much out there in the passing game. You know, okay, we're going to say Russell Shepard or Adam Humphries is going to be catching all the touchdowns. I know, as you mentioned, they have been playing better than people think, but it's still a matchup where it's more game script than defense opponent here. I don't see how the Saints don't put up 30-plus points in this game, and if they're putting up 30-plus points and the Bucs want to try and stay in the playoff race and they want to try and win this game, they're going to have to pass and score and keep up.
Let's just start there then. Since you just said that you think the Saints are going to be scoring 30 points. Now, do you think a lot of that's going to come from Drew Brees? Do you think that Mark Ingram is – I think Mark Ingram's criminally underpriced this week at 4,400, but I do like Brees. Like, how do you feel about Brees this week?
I'm not on Mark Ingram, which we can talk about as well, but I am in on Drew Brees, as I always am. I was a big fan of his last week. I threw out the numbers before on other shows I get to talk about with you guys, but the fact that the last time he had gone 3 games in a row without a touchdown is way back in 2003, which was the 3rd game. He got hurt in that. And it's Drew Brees at home. We know the Drew Brees numbers at home and on the road, and he's the fantasy god at home. And the fact that Brandon Cooks is better on the road than he is at home. The biggest factor I think that people need to take away from this is I'm going to go back to it. It's Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, I think, is the key to this passing game, as long with Drew Brees, obviously. But he was not out there for this first game, and he changes the dynamic of this offense. He's Marcus Colston. He's better than Marcus Colston, as great as Marcus Colston was, because he runs that slot flanker role. He gives Drew Brees that option over the seams, down the middle of the field, in the red zone. Everything he does just opens so many things up for Brandon Cooks and the running game and Willie Snead and everything else. So I'm looking at this game. I think Drew Brees he's inside my top 3 quarterbacks again this week. If I could pair up to go against Michael Brate as well, I've actually had Michael Thomas in the majority of my lineups, even without Drew Brees. If I have Drew Brees in there, it's with Michael Thomas, as Brate and Thomas are in the majority of my lineups.
Gotcha. So you're basically game stacking that. How do you feel about that, Joe? Are you on that game, or are you looking at a different game?
Yeah, definitely going to have a lot of exposure to the Superdome game. I have a pretty narrow player pool right now at quarterback in general. I'm either probably paying up for Brees. He's probably the only cash option I'm really looking at this point. If I'm paying down, it's probably going to be for Tyrod Taylor, just because he's so cheap. I mean, his salary hasn't been this low over the last 6 weeks, and they're a home favorite. The Dolphins haven't been great. I think just that floor in general is really appealing at 5,400. And I don't know. Aside from that, maybe looking at like Andrew Luck to T.Y. Hilton in tournaments. But I don't know. It's kind of I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm either going to play Brees or Tyrod, and maybe have a little bit of Luck to T.Y. in tournament sprinkled in.
I love that. I love the Luck to Hilton one. And a lot of people are wondering if Moncrief changes my outlook on Hilton. No, it doesn't. No, because Hilton actually has the best matchup in the slot there. He'll be facing a backup slot cornerback that basically has been burned. That position against the Raiders, that's where you attack them. And that's where T.Y. Hilton plays about 70% of his snaps. Now, do you guys have no interest if you're paying up to go to Brady?
Oh, I like Brady. I do. I think this is the way that you attack the Jets is through the passing game. And the only concern I have here is this. I was going to say this might be a situation where I played naked Brady. Haha, that's hot. But the fact is, Brady, I've been pairing a lot. What I have been is with actually Edelman, because of all of them, Edelman has the best matchup. If you talk about looking at the corners in the situation that's out there, and Edelman had a decent game the first time around, and I think he can eclipse all of those numbers. But I'm also, okay with just playing Brady and not trying to figure out the wide receivers, because if Michael Floyd is active, do you even bother with that? Do you bother with Malcolm Mitchell? So that's the whole situation with him. I am more with Joe. If I'm going to go that high, for the fact that he's $300 less, I'm just going to go with Drew Brees. Although I do think that Tom Brady is somewhat of a contrarian because he is that high. The other guys I was looking at was obviously Derek Carr paired with Amari Cooper, because Amari Cooper, everybody knows what's going on with him. He is Brandon Cooks. He shows up once, 3, 4, 5 times a year, and he disappoints the rest of the way. But speaking of matchups, Vontae Davis has been abysmal this year. He went from being a Pro Bowl corner to one of the guys you target to go against. So, and this is the highest over-under in Vegas is this game, and understandably so. And the one other one, I'm surprised. I don't know. Yeah, maybe you're somewhat in on him, Joe, or maybe you haven't mentioned him yet, Mike. But I'm in on Cam Newton at $6,600. Look, Cam Newton looked like the old Cam Newton last week, and I know he's been very frustrating this season. But going against Atlanta, and they want to play, obviously they want to play spoiler. They still have the slimmest of playoff hopes, and I don't think they're counting on that. But Cam Newton and Ted Ginn are doing what they were doing at the end of last year. You could save a ton. I always prefer just to play Cam Newton with no wide receivers. But if you really want to just be contrarian and say, hey, Ted Ginn's back on his roll from last year, and he's in the 4,000s. What is he, 4,500, I think?
Ted Ginn is 4,500.
Yeah, I have him on my list.
4,500. Yeah, 4,500. Like, I've thrown him into a couple lineups with Cam Newton.
Yeah, I've been playing. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I have no issue with Cam Newton. I don't know why nobody's talking about Ben.
No, that was going to be my other one. Hey, I threw it out already earlier this season on this show, because I wrote it in the article. So I actually wrote it in the Roto Experts article this week. I updated. So the past 3 years, as you I'm sure know, Mike, his home road splits at home, 30.4 fantasy points per game, which is unbelievable. 343 passing yards, 2.9 touchdowns. On the road, 17.1, 270, and 1.1. Forget about Drew Brees. He makes Drew Brees look like the most consistent quarterback in the league. So Ben Roethlisberger at home, playing against the Ravens, who give up the second most wide receiver touchdowns in the league. Actually, I think they jumped up to tied after last week. I have to double check on that, but I know there's up there. I've been playing a lot of Ben and Antonio Brown, and I don't have no problem because a lot of people are not going to want to pay up for that.
Yes, Antonio Brown is like I really don't care what direction we go in, guys. Like, I don't care who we play at quarterback. He will be in our tournament lineup that we're making.
Antonio Brown? Yes. So that's your first pick. You're just going to jump in ahead of everything and say Antonio Brown?
Yes, he will be the one person. Like, if there's one guy that I would have in every single lineup, it'd be Antonio Brown.
What do you guys think?
No Jimmy Smith.
What do you guys think about a Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown stack this week?
Yep. I wrote up my poster boy this week was Antonio Brown, Roethlisberger. I keep forgetting we're talking about that slate that includes that game right now. So I really like them in general. Cam Newton's interesting. I talk about it decent amount, but the trends that I have on Fantasy Labs to try and find value and lower ownership at certain positions, Cam Newton was actually at the top for quarterbacks this week. I'm just a little bit nervous with kind of still that offensive line play, but I mean, he's got a lot of factors that you look for. I mean, he's a home underdog with kind of like the implied point total sweet spot that you look for, and he struggled lately aside from last week. So I still think that you could get him at lower ownership, especially. So it's interesting. I haven't made a call on that yet, but I have been playing a good amount of Ted Ginn, so I kind of like the way you're going with that as well.
Well, Cam Newton, so my only issue with Cam, because I actually passed him up and I was like, do I like him in cash? Because he obviously did look better throwing the ball. Now, the question is, does he offer that much of a ceiling without running the ball? Because he hasn't been running the ball at all lately. That's my concern about him. And Atlanta is very vulnerable against the run. So are the Redskins, which is why Jonathan Stewart had a decent game. I feel like Jonathan Stewart can have another solid game against Atlanta. That's my only concern about Cam.
Yeah, but the good thing is for whatever reason, they refuse to use Jonathan Stewart in the passing game and near the goal line. Right. It's just like, what, you're throwing passes to Mike Tolbert at the goal line? Come on.
I know. Like, I wanted Cam to run that in because they had it on the half-yard line, and I had Cam going in that game, and it was to get into the championship. The other guy had Kelvin Benjamin. And I think it was who was it? Brandon Funston, I think, from Yahoo. I think that's who I was playing. And I ended up losing. He had Benjamin, I had Newton, and I ended up losing by, I think it was like 3 points. So I could have really used a rushing touchdown and a little more rushing out of Cam, but I won't complain. So I think we're all on the same page for quarterbacks, but I'm going to throw one out there that I really, really like for cash, and that is Dak Prescott, and nobody's talking about him. I really like Dak a lot this week. The Lions have only allowed 3 rushing touchdowns to running backs all season. They have just lost 2/3 of their starting cornerbacks. Darius Slay is the main one that you basically look out for. So Nevin Lawson and a backup cornerback are going to be taking care of Dez Bryant because they've been using like a Frankenstein's monster of cornerbacks to try and replace even Quandre Diggs, let alone both Quandre Diggs and Darius Slay. So are you guys with me on Dak? Like, I just feel like it's too good of a matchup for cash. Now, for tournaments, probably not because the play count is so low by both those teams. But I feel like in cash, he's a solid play.
Yeah, I'm with you on cash. Not for tournament, obviously, because just the Detroit Lions are one of the slowest teams in the league. I don't know if that's intentional or maybe if you've watched some of their games.
Yeah.
That explains why it's such a drain trying to watch a freaking Lions game, and it takes forever, and the penalties on top of it. So I don't know if it's partly the penalties or what it can be, but yeah, that's part of it. And then we all know that the Cowboys grind out the clock with the running game as well. So I definitely want to stay away in tournaments, but in cash for the price, I'm okay with it. And if you look at it, Des Bryant with no Darius Slay out there, this is going to be it should be one of his better weeks.
Yeah. And we Joe, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think I still prefer going down a little bit to Tyrod, but I understand the points you made. I just really like that Tyrod's had at least 30 yards in 8 of his last 9 games on the ground. So just that kind of safety net, if you are going to pay down and look for more of a cash option, I think I still prefer Tyrod.
Gotcha. And it makes sense. I understand your point there. All right. So let's go to running backs. This week, it's not as deep as usual.
No Tom Savage?
No Tom Savage. No, we're not talking about Tom Savage. I'm surprised that nobody mentioned Phillip Rivers. I think he's a solid cash play too.
Well, he's obvious.
But if you're up at 6,900, you might as well go to Luck.
Because that's the only thing is Phillip Rivers, as good as he's passing, he's also throwing interceptions every single game.
He really is. He's thrown a lot of them. But running back is really weak this week. It's not a week where I really want to pay up. Joe, I know that I'll let you start here and talk about what running backs you like, because I know you posted something about basically David Johnson, how you like him in tournaments when everybody's fading him.
Yeah, I definitely am going to play some DJ in tournaments. In cash games, yeah, I understand if you do want to go elsewhere because there are some other good options at the top. Not having Le'Veon Bell on the main slate kind of changes things. I think the majority of people are probably playing that Saturday slate this week, but I do really like Jordan Howard at 6,300 against Washington. Yes. He's something I'm looking at for cash right now. Over the last 6 weeks, he's averaged over 20 touches per game. So I really like that at 6,300. And I just think in general, Chicago at home against the Washington defense that just hasn't stopped the run very well is a really good value for that price.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Actually, Jordan Howard is one of the running backs I had bold. So we'll go to Jake and see if he guesses my other one.
I'm not. I'm off on Jordan Howard.
Why?
I'll tell you why.
Because they're still getting him touches.
100%. Look. This is a situation. Exactly. Redskins are coming back after a bad game of their offense. I don't expect it to happen in 2 weeks in a row against the way that the Bears defense is starting to take a huge step back over the second half of the season. We know they're a pass-heavy offense. This should be, if you're looking at it, Kirk Cousins should come out and bounce back to being Kirk Cousins. As much as I despise Kirk Cousins, he should be a 300-yard game, 2 or 3 touchdowns. And if that's the case, Kadeem Carey is going to be on the field more. As much as we hate it, and as much as Jordan Howard can excel in both facets of the game, it's John Fox. And I watched last week's game when they didn't even really need to use Carey, and he got on the field. And I know Jordan Howard is getting the touches. I would rather play him in a tournament because I feel that he's too risky for that. It's almost kind of like a Colin Kaepernick type of situation, although for a different reason. But I just feel like in a cash game, he could burn you because of Carey's touches and if it turns into a pass-heavy game for the Bears. That's my only concern. As much as I love Jordan Howard, I'm just off him this week. Can
I throw some fade at that, at Kirk Cousins? Could I let you know? I actually wrote him up as one of my fades of the week. Like, I don't like Kirk Cousins at all. And it's because the Bears at home have been a different team. They're allowing just 19 points per game at home. Their only 3 wins that they've had this year have come at home. And I know what you're saying, how their defense has been trending down because Jarrell Freeman was suspended. They lost Danny Trevathan. Jarrell Freeman comes back this week. He's been graded as PFF's number 3 linebacker this year. So him coming back is a big addition. Kirk Cousins without Jordan Reed in his career is not very good. I actually went through and looked at his splits. Without Reed, he averages 16 fantasy points per game, whereas with Reed, he's up at 23.3. Without Reed, he throws 1.29 touchdowns, 1.24 picks. So like he doesn't have that safety blanket. We haven't seen him been using Jamison Crowder enough. The Bears have actually done pretty well with perimeter wide receivers. Before Jordy Nelson basically caught that long ball to end the game, the Bears, I want to say it had been, how many weeks was it? They hadn't allowed a a wide receiver with more than 70 yards in the last 6 weeks outside of Jordy Nelson. So like the Bears defense is actually a lot better at home. And it's weird for me to say that.
Yeah, but you remember, Mike, don't get too hung up on that because of the fact if you look at the level of competition on the road, this is similar to Kirk Cousins last year when everybody was like, oh, Kirk Cousins is terrible on the road. Well, the level of competition last year he was facing on the road was significantly superior to what he was facing at home. And if you look at the Bears schedule so far this year, most of their road opponents are pretty daggone tough. And what they faced at home, like San Francisco, Minnesota at some point, I think they got Tennessee at home. So I think that's a factor as well. I hear what you're saying, and I know it's more so the return that I think with it being healthy is going to change a little bit, but that's the only reason. And again, that's the only reason I'm off on him, and I could be completely wrong. I seem to be on the island by myself for the Jordan Howard factor this week, but that's just how I'm feeling. So to go back to your first question, I have a feeling I'm going to pick your other running back because he's somebody you've mentioned before, and I love him this week, and Carlos Hyde, because the fact is the Rams are not going to pull away from the 49ers, so we don't have to worry about Carlos Hyde coming off the field. Carlos Hyde has been running terrifically since he's came back, averaged terrific yards after contact. I love him this week, and I don't have a problem with everybody jumping on board and bandwagoning Ty Montgomery. I think even against the Minnesota defense, he's going to be fine this week as well. So actually, I've been putting Carlos Hyde and Ty Montgomery in a lot of cash game lineups and even sprinkling one or two of them in tournaments.
Yeah, I like Ty Montgomery too. And Carlos Hyde is not the running back that I had in mind. Actually,
really? You love Carlos Hyde.
I do love Carlos Hyde, and I'm not going to say he's a bad play. I think he's a better cash game play than he is tournament. I worry about the entire right side of the 49ers offensive line, including their center, is awful, and that's basically where Aaron Donald and Robert Quinn are going to line up, which is just not a very good thing for or not Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn went to IR. Who am I thinking about? William Hayes. So basically, the entire right side of the offensive line is going to crumble. That's why I actually like the Rams defense this week. They're like probably my favorite defensive play that for a tournament because not many people are talking about them. If you're paying up that much, you could basically get whoever you want. So I like them. But my favorite I like Jordan Howard an awful lot. One of my favorites is Latavius Murray, though. Latavius Murray in a spot with the highest over under. They are a favorite at home. You know, Joe, I know you talk about that all the time. You look for home favorites that in a closer game, it's nice to see that kind of.
I think for cash games, it's important, but for tournaments, it sometimes is nice to have those slight underdogs too. But go ahead.
Yeah. But I mean, sitting at 52.5 in a non-division game, we don't have to worry about weather in this one. Latavius Murray's coming off of a game where it wasn't a great game. What did he have? 81 yards on 16 carries, but it wasn't a usual Latavius Murray game because he didn't score a touchdown. But I do think that this week with the over under the way it is with Derek Carr, like over the second half of the seasons, he's deteriorated. Like we've seen that over his first two seasons, and it's kind of happened this year. I don't know if it has to do with his finger at all, if that's playing any part in it. They obviously have some serious weapons in the passing game that you have to worry about. So the Colts have allowed in half of their games this year, they have allowed a 23 DraftKings point running back. So Latavius Murray is one of my favorite plays this week, and at 6,200, I'd argue that I'd still like him if he was at 7,000.
You're not concerned about the touches being an issue again? I mean, we had 11 for DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard all of a sudden.
I looked at that, and that did concern me a little bit because Washington had been inactive the last couple of weeks. So it's like, I don't know why.
Everything was looking fine, and then last week rolls around, and it's like, hey, both of them are in the mix again.
I don't know why that happened again. And then now we have Marcel Reese taking away some receptions too. So I think that may be part of the reason he's down there at 6,200, but I'm okay with him against the Colts. And the Colts, obviously, Clayton Geathers, their starting safety, their starting middle linebacker, DeQuell Jackson got suspended. So their defense is struggling right now. And we saw Lamar Miller eat them up last week, and Lamar Miller's playing hurt.
Well, I got two more to ask you guys about. So one is I've been throwing Jay Ajayi in a few lineups not because what he did the first time around, but just basically because the Bills' run defense is one to exploit. I know that the numbers have not been there, especially with how pass heavy they've been. I just feel like Matt Moore in this game Matt Moore's not going to do what he did last week. That's what it really comes down to. But kind of get your opinions on him. And then as a tournament play, especially because DraftKings is PPR with the usage last week, and if Tom Brady's throwing for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, Deion Lewis.
I have him as one of mine. At 4,100, he's a steal.
I think that could be he could fall backwards into 4 times value.
Yeah, I mean, I like kind of the thought process there. It's some of those situations where it's just a running back that's basically a three-headed committee at times. It just like scares me. I understand it in tournaments, but like, what's the real upside there? Unless you're trying to jam in some other guys that are expensive. And I think that if anything, you have money to spend this week. If anything, you're not really trying to punt kind of like last week to get some of those top running backs in. I like Jay. I think Jay Johnny is interesting. His salary's dropped quite a bit over the past month, and he's been struggling, obviously, but he's been getting volume. So I think it's a pretty good strategy sometimes to like target those guys that are still seeing volume but have struggled a bit. Latavius Murray, like, what about the running back on the other side? Do you guys on Frank Gore at all?
4,800. I like him in cash, man.
He's
not in tournaments though.
Since week 10 and 13 opportunities inside the 10-yard line during that span. So I like him at 4,800. I don't necessarily. I don't know. It's never, you never feel comfortable. Man. You never feel comfortable with it. But yeah,
the age is catching up. You know who we didn't mention?
Who?
Todd Gurley.
Oh God, I have him on my list, but I don't feel comfortable playing him in cash. That's my issue with Todd Gurley. If you're paying 6,500,
does anybody feel good about it? Like every single both sides reacted to it. Both sides priced him up. They know what's going on.
I mean, it's hard not to like him. It's hard not to like him, but I don't feel good about playing him like ever. But this is a game where I actually have the Rams winning this game, just because I do believe that their defense does well against San Fran. I think they have trouble scoring. But if you're going down, how about this one, guys? San Diego has allowed a running back touchdown in 11 of 14 games this season. What do you guys think about Isaiah Crowell at 4,100?
Actually, I'm on the other side of the ball on this one. I'm throwing Kenneth Farrow in
there. I want to like him.
I think he catches a touchdown this week from Phillip Rivers. The Cleveland Browns defense and the fact that Kenneth Farrow in the passing game is so utilized. Rodney Hillman looked better than him last week. That's straight up a fact. But at the same time, I think that Kenneth Farrow could catch one in there. And again, these are flyer plays. We're obviously, let's be clear. I don't think we're obviously suggesting any of these to be like your core guys.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, if you're going to go to 5,000 for Farrow, that's why I like Gore at 4,800 because he's 200 cheaper and you don't have to worry about the workload. Whereas Farrow, I want to like him. I actually have a decision now. I'm going to ask you guys your opinion in a league that I'm in the championship. Do I start Kenneth Farrow or do I start AJ Green?
There's a PPR.
Yeah.
AJ Green.
It's actually in the Flex Championship, Jake.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Kenneth Farrow, you should lose.
It's probably Green, just because I think you'd rather Farrow blow up on your bench than Green blow up on your bench. I think you can live with that.
I just don't see, like, I know people are saying, well, it's the hamstring and AJ Green can come out early and all that. Look, I just don't see the Cincinnati Bengals putting AJ Green out there with nothing to play for unless he's ready.
That's exactly how I feel about him, and that's what's making it tough on me. But yeah, I do think Farrow's a solid play because even if Ronnie Hillman gets 10 to 12 touches, that's going to leave 15 for Farrow, and 15 touches against the Browns is pretty solid.
And people are going to say, well, he's going for the record. Do you think the Bengals give two farts about AJ Green going for the 1,000-yard record? No, they're not going to. If you're talking about your franchise wide receiver, they're not going to put him out there if he's not ready.
What record are you talking about?
He's consecutive seasons with 1,000 yards.
Oh, that's stupid. But yeah, that's not like it's a. I mean, if you're Antonio Gates, I get it because like that's like a historic record. Whereas
that's not going to happen for Gates. It's done. It's over.
We're going to talk about him.
Off the train.
All right, I'm going to throw. We'll just go around. We don't have to talk about him, but I'll throw one more name out there. If Adrian Peterson's out this game, I think Jerick McKinnon's an interesting flyer.
No,
at 4,000.
No.
He's been playing a lot better lately, man. They've been using him in passing game. Green Bay is very susceptible to running backs.
Fool me once. Shame on it. Fool me 17 times. I'm not getting back in.
Joe, who do you got, Joe? Like, who's a flyer for you?
I'm probably not going there. I do like DeMarco Murray again this week. It's one guy we didn't talk about too much. He's a guy that's been pretty high up in my model. I think that Jacksonville can be beat on the ground, but I don't know how I don't know. You're not going to get him at real low ownership either, though. So he's kind of in that in-between range. He's not going to be super chalk, but he's not going to be very contrarian either. So I'll have a little bit of DeMarco Murray, but probably not a ton.
I like DeMarco. I'd probably just go with Howard or Murray just because they're a little bit cheaper, but I do like DeMarco. Jake, you have any last person to throw out before we go to wide receiver?
Kenneth Dixon because of game script. This is another one. Pittsburgh's defense, not good against the run, but more so worse against pass catching and running backs. If Pittsburgh's going to run up the score at home, as we just talked about with Ben Roethlisberger and throwing like crazy, Ravens are going to have to turn to Kenneth Dixon this week like they did 2 weeks ago.
That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. It's really frustrating how they're using the running backs there. I wish we'd see more Dixon, but we're not.
That's the thing is, like, this is why sometimes you try to predict that. Like, I think Kenneth Dixon, Bilal Powell, Deion Lewis, because of game script, if you look at all three of those teams and what they'll be facing, and then for different reasons, that's kind of what we could always be wrong, but more often than not, you kind of try to predict these things out.
Yeah, no, and I see what you're saying and predicting game script and all that. So going on to wide receivers, my favorite ones, I have Antonio Brown. Obviously, I like him. Michael Thomas. I like Allen Robinson at 4,600, and I know I'm on my own there. I'm standing up.
No, you're not. I've heard a lot of people.
I wrote him up this week.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people be on Allen Robinson. This is why I've decided to fade him in tournaments. I think there's going to be a higher ownership percentage than people expect.
Okay, so Joe, I took a lot of crap inside of our group chat for standing up for Allen Robinson. Like, people are legitimately hating on me because I've defended Allen Robinson this year, and they're basically like saying he sucks. So I don't know. I thought I was like the only one here on Allen Robinson, but one last player. Honestly, I have no issue if you want to squeeze Eli Rogers and Antonio Brown into the same lineup.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at Eli Rogers. Yeah, what's his price at? How low is he?
3,800.
Yeah, that's pretty low. I think kind of at the lower range. I'm looking at Allen Robinson at 4,600. I think that he is going to be higher owned than people think, but he is in a pretty good spot. Everyone's putting up points against Tennessee. If Blake Bortles is going to have even a quarter of usable play, it's probably going to be against Tennessee. So I do like Allen Robinson. I haven't really looked at anyone really below him quite yet, but maybe Ted Ginn. Yeah. So
Cameron Meredith around that price range.
Solid play. Good matchup in the slot. Not going to see Josh Norman. Norman should be on Alshon Jeffrey most of the game. Yeah, I like Cameron Meredith.
Who do you like at wide receiver, Jake?
I love Michael Thomas. Always love Michael Thomas. And I mentioned Julian Edelman. Big fan of his this week. Amari Cooper. I think this is the week again. And it's not because he's due, people. There is no such thing as being due. I hate that. I hate when people are like, oh, he's due. No. He wasn't due last week. So anyway, I'm a big fan of those. And then somebody we haven't talked about and not just because of the matchup for what happened last week, but because of the matchup, and the matchup hasn't changed for Emmanuel Sanders. I think that he can exploit what we're looking at for against the Chiefs here. I think Trevor Siemian, for a lot of people being on it. If you want to get really kind of out there, there was people that were stacking the Siemian, Demaryius Thomas, Siemian, Emmanuel Sanders last week. I think that you could get the very low ownership on a Siemian Sanders stack in a tournament purely, but cash or tournament, I really like Emmanuel Sanders this week. I've had a lot of Emmanuel Sanders, a lot of Edelman, Thomas, and Cooper are pretty much my 4 highest owned wide receivers this week. And then outside of that, I'm back on Tate this week still. At Dallas.
I like Tate.
I always find a hard time not to like Golden Tate, especially when the matchup is in his favor. And then, to be honest with you, I know a lot of people are going to steer clear of Taylor Gabriel because of the price and because Julio Jones should be back. But I think the Julio Jones being back might open some more things up for him. I would not play him in cash at all. Not with Julio Jones on the field. Julio Jones is out, that's a different story. But if Julio Jones is playing, I think he makes a nice, interesting tournament play because I think a lot of people are going to jump off board because of the snap count. And I think it's not going to hurt people. I don't think it's going to hurt him as much as people expect.
Joe, you're playing a lot of tournaments. You do every single week. Are you getting some Julio in your lineups?
I don't know. It's going to be probably a decision I make on Saturday morning. Not quite yet. I want to hear a little bit more good news with him. Are we back on Rashard Matthews this week? What's that? Yeah, is he going to do that again?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not on Rashard Matthews just because Jacksonville's been really, really good. Like under the radar good. Jalen Ramsey's going to be a good cornerback for a really long time, and I happen to think that he's going to be shadowing Rashard Matthews this time around.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. It's just his target share has been so incredibly nice for a guy that's still at 4,900 on DraftKings. So
yeah, he's still really cheap.
I'm looking at him. I wrote him up with my Allen Robinson stack this week. So maybe I'll play them together so that if they both suck on the same lineups.
I like to go back to another one. I actually like a receiver on both sides of the ball in the Chargers Cleveland game. And I think that Tyrell Williams, people are frustrated that he's going to, I know the shoulder's an issue, but I think that's why he's going to have a low ownership. Basically, there's going to be one wide receiver from the Chargers. It's just, you got to hopefully pick the right one. So
no, it's going to be Antonio Gates.
No, not. It's going to be Hunter Henry again. Watch. One of those receivers. And then on the flip side, look, Corey Coleman at $3,900. Terrell Pryor is hurt. Terrell Pryor is going to get the worst matchup in the world. I'd say top 5 worst matchup, which is going to free up Corey Coleman. And I know there's a question of Robert Griffin at quarterback, but the chemistry is all of a sudden there. Wasn't earlier this year, but all of a sudden it's starting to be there. It could be a sneaky play because Cleveland's just going to keep throwing the ball anyway if they're trying to keep up in this game. It could lead to 17 turnovers for Robert Griffin, but Corey Coleman could sneak out with 100 yards at this game.
It's interesting. Terrell Pryor's not really the guy anymore. He's playing hurt, apparently. I don't know if that's an excuse or whatever. I don't know. Here's the thing. So I see some people in the chat giving me some crap about my Eli Rogers take. And here's the thing, people, listen up. So no Ladarius Green. Ladarius Green's not going to play. He suffered a concussion. He's got a really bad history with them. So that's obviously out the window. Jesse James hasn't really been doing much. He's been kept in the block a lot. Sammy Coates started getting more snaps again last week. Now he pulled his hamstring in practice today. He's out for this game. Kobe Hamilton, you're not talking about him. This is a Baltimore Ravens secondary that's going to be down Jimmy Smith. So, seriously, add it all up. Le'Veon, they're not going to be able to run the ball in Baltimore. They allow 3.3 yards per carry on the season. Don't worry about what Ryan Matthews did. It was a really sloppy game and one where it's tough for a defense to get footing. I really like Eli Rogers, and at 3,800, you really can't fault him. The last time they played Baltimore was with Jimmy Smith, and Eli Rogers had his most targets in the season. He totaled 6 catches for 103 yards that game. I do like him a lot, and he was obviously targeted a lot last week, so they're starting to use him more again. I don't know. I don't know if anybody else thinks I'm crazy because of that, but I want to explain my case. And at 3,800, you're taking essentially no risk, none. So I don't know. So I think T.Y. Hilton is a good one at 7,800. I know, Joe, you said you liked him a lot. How do you guys feel about Des Bryant at 6,500?
I don't know. I haven't played him a ton just in general over the last couple of years. His price is always so high for his targets, and I'm just trying to find targets, man. He's not a guy that I ever roll out in cash. In tournaments, I understand, but he's going to have a Des Bryant game, which he hasn't done a ton this year, for him to really hit value at that price. So not really on him. I'm not as high on Dak as you are, though. So I'd like to hear your reasoning behind Des.
No Darius Slay.
Yeah, if Slay's out, they basically don't have a cornerback to cover him. That's basically what it comes down to. I mean, Cole Beasley can be used as a cash game play, I think, at 4,900. But in a tournament, which is pretty much we try and talk about, I think Des Bryant offers you 2 touchdown upside in this game. Detroit's defense has been really good, but it's also because they were starting to get more healthy with Slay because he missed some time earlier in the season. They were missing DeAndre Levy earlier in the season, so Haloti Nada missed some time. So it's just this defense missing Slay in the secondary hurts a lot. That's the way you attack them. The fact that they've only allowed 3 rushing touchdowns on the year obviously plays into it as well. Dallas, depending on what happens in the games before, they may have nothing to play for. So they may go to Darren McFadden in the running game a little bit, which obviously doesn't pose a threat. I don't know. I just like it. They're at home. You don't have to worry about the weather. The game total has been going up as the week's gone on. I think the total's risen 3.5 points since it came out. So I think people are starting to get on that game. I think it's starting to get more notice as we get further and further into the week.
I'll give you one more sleeper down at $4,600. Obviously, it matters if he's healthy or not, so make that clear. But Adam Thielen gets Demarius Randall this week, which is just exploit that matchup. And Adam Thielen's actually been the best Vikings wide receiver the past couple weeks.
It's really weird. He didn't score anything, and then he got hurt late in the third quarter, and he was ruled out immediately, and now he's not even on the injury report. So I don't know what's going on with Adam Thielen.
No, neither do I. It's just a confusing situation. But hey, if he's healthy,
right,
I'll throw him into a lineup, obviously by himself and not with Sam Bradford.
Right, and Diggs has got a new injury to his hip, and when Diggs is basically limited in practice, he hasn't been anything this year.
That's true.
All right, so I'm gonna before we go to tight end, what do you guys think? We had someone in the chat asking about Tavon Austin. What do you guys think about Tavon?
No, ever,
No.
never. Tavon, you're trying to predict 3 good games a year. I'm not going to do it ever.
I wouldn't mind going to Kenny Britt this week, though, in GPPs. I think he's just a guy that constantly goes overlooked because he's probably overpriced. But
well, he's got the shoulder thing going on right now. That kind of concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that could be that could be true, but he's been a guy that I think for it's the same kind of thing as the Rashard Matthews thing. His target share doesn't match his price, so those are the kind of guys that always pop up in my model, but that's interesting about the shoulder. I have to look at that.
Yeah, well, Tavon Austin, I think the reason that it's even consideration for me, he's only 4,000. Jimmy Ward went onto IR this week, so obviously that's an upgrade for the slot receiver there. They may use him a little bit in the running game, which is obviously a good thing against San Francisco. So I think as a GPP play, you could do worse. I probably wouldn't play him. I'd rather go down to Eli Rogers at 38.
You can start Jared Cook at tight end.
Oh, God, no, don't do that. Don't do
Him
that.
and Tavon Austin should be put in the same trash heap and lit on fire.
Okay. All right. Let's start with your hot takes, boys. Who do you guys got at tight end? Joe, who do you got?
We already mentioned my guy for the week for sure, Cameron Brate. I think he's the clear price that's just broken at tight end for sure this week. Against the Saints, who have been a little bit better, obviously against the tight ends, but still not great. I think just his targets over the last 6 weeks, he's barely even priced as a top 10 tight end option right now. So I think that's a little ridiculous. I think you can pay all the way up for Greg Olsen this week. It's a really good matchup for a team that kind of funnels their offense to the middle of the field, which I think plays out really well for Greg Olsen. So it's kind of the same thing as it is at quarterback for me this week. I have kind of a narrow player pool right now. I think you can fire at either of those guys, maybe a Martellus Bennett and GPPs just because of how high their team total is, and he's been kind of overlooked. But those are the 3 guys that kind of jump out to me, at least early in the week right now at tight end.
Gotcha. All right. And Jake, we know you love Cameron Brate, but who else you got?
Yeah, the only other 2 that I'm thinking about is maybe Eric Ebron, just because the Cowboys have been they've been struggling against tight ends, especially the last 4 weeks, actually for the entire season, but especially the last 4 weeks. And I know people have cooled off on Eric Ebron because he himself has cooled off. But if you want low ownership on him and his prices dropped as a result, the other one I'm looking at, and I've said this before, you guys know this, Martellus Bennett without Rob Gronkowski in the field is not as good, but he does have some opportunities, and the Jets against tight ends, that's almost you go out there and attack the Jets in the tight end position. So obviously, if I think that Tom Brady is going to throw 300 yards and 4 touchdowns this week, I'm probably going to like Edelman. I'm probably going to like Bennett. I'm probably going to like somebody else. I'm not trying to predict the wide receiver, so I'll just stick to Bennett and Edelman. I don't like them in cash. I don't like actually Ebron or Bennett in cash, but I think if you're looking for tournament plays, either one of those. And then Kyle Rudolph is a strong play, I think, in cash, but I just don't see why you need to get any of these guys with Brate at the price that he's at.
Well, so if you're talking about cash, I get it, but fading the chalk at tight end and Cameron Brate.
I was talking about for cash for Brate, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So for tournament, though, I like the Bennett call an awful lot. And I say that because the Jets offer no pass rush whatsoever, like none. So therefore, Martellus Bennett's not going to be kept in the block like he would against teams that bring a pass rush. I was actually going through that this week because I was considering, because I was writing my locks of the week, the guys basically that I love, that I feel like you can lock them in for production, just put them in your lineup. And I was debating putting Bennett in there. There is a little risk because there's so many options to go around there. So I ultimately decided to go with my boy Antonio Gates, which, by the way, guys, so Joe, I know we had a conversation through Twitter, you and I, basically how Gates screwed you from having a top 50 millionaire maker lineup. And
wow.
So here's the deal. It literally is now or never for Antonio Gates. And I say that because the Browns have allowed 4 multi-touchdown games to tight ends this season. If you guys recall that game, Martellus Bennett had 3 of them. That was against the Browns. They've allowed 12 this season. No other team has allowed more than 10 to tight ends. So the reason I say it's now or never, because next week they play the Chiefs. The Chiefs were the number 1 team against tight ends last year. They're the number 3 team against tight ends this year. He's not going to do anything against the Chiefs. He'd be lucky to get 1. So I really do believe it's now or never for Antonio Gates. And I have a feeling, Joe, that a lot of people are like you, that you've been burned so many times going for that narrative that maybe you may get him at a slightly lower percentage just because of that, like just thinking he's done. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I think he'll be under 5% still for sure.
You really do?
Yeah. I think
Fire
so.
him up in the flex with Hunter Henry as your tight end.
Oh God, get out of here.
Hey, this could be a week, is for all joking aside, this could be a week where both of them finish as a top 10 tight end.
Yeah, well, I really wouldn't put that past them. One league, in one of my season-long leagues, I'm trying to fit in Antonio Gates into my lineup, and I can't figure out a way to do it. I would have to bench somebody like Travis Kelce or Lamar Miller. I kid you not that I've debated it
Lamar
because
Miller,
I
you
really,
might have the decision made for you. Lamar Miller might not even play this week.
I kind of hope that kind of happens, just so I can kind of just go forward with
So you
my
don't
gut.
get 20 snaps for Lamar Miller and then you hate yourself?
Oh God, no! Like his ankle, like he wasn't playing very good when he had the injury earlier, like a couple weeks ago. So that's my concern about Miller.
I was gonna say I was in a deep league and I just picked up Keem Hunt and Alfred Blue. I might have to play one of them this week.
Oh God, that's ugly, man. I think a deep sleeper. Last week I said Garrett Selleck, and he ended up scoring a touchdown. My deep sleeper this week, if you guys are looking for a minimum tight end play, is Clive Walford. It's not going to be like a massive game, but if you're looking for someone at 2,500, just fill a lineup. I think you could definitely do worse than Clive Walford. So, all right, guys, what do you say we put together a lineup? Oh, let's start here. Let's throw out a couple defenses because a lot of people send me messages saying that they love the defensive segment last week with Rummy. Maybe I don't know if we'll be on his point as he is, but Joe, you want to start us off? Give us a couple defenses you like.
Yeah, I think we can actually go right back to where Rummy was last week with the Patriots. They're favored by, I mean, it's the largest spread of the week, 16.5 points. And it's the largest favorite actually we've seen since week 6. So I think just since taking over the start as a starter, like the interception rate from Petty has been just pretty crazy. And I think that in general, targeting the Jets in this game could be probably a situation where the Patriots get a defensive touchdown. That's where you're probably more worried about anyway, but they're probably going to be throwing the ball too. So I really like that for a lot of the same reasons we liked them last week. And I think that they'll probably be a little chalkier than you want, but I think they're definitely one of the top raw point projection defenses this week.
Mm-hmm. No, I like them too. Two of my favorites, the Rams and the Chargers, but they're 35 and 34. Jake, do you have anybody cheaper that you like at defense?
Very much so. The Bills at home against the Dolphins. First of all, always a good matchup for the Bills. Second of all, the Bills at home against the Dolphins in cold weather. I want this game so much. I have the Bills so many places. I think Matt Moore is going to go out there and throw 2 or 3 picks this week.
Really?
Yeah.
I understand the thought on it, but my only worry here is that Buffalo has nothing to play for, and I mean
they have one of the highest adjusted sack rates.
They do. And at home, they actually I want to say it was like something like 3.5 sacks per game when they're at home. Is Miami now the only one that's out on Miami's offensive line is Pouncey, right?
It doesn't even matter to me. I mean, he's the best. Well, he's the best one. But I'm just saying, like, I don't even care that their offensive line's entire hell. I'll go down with the shit with the Bills. The Bills are a top 3 play for me this week.
Matt Moore's the GOAT, though.
Yeah, Matt Moore is done this week. This is we're going to revert back to the other. Watch him reverse. Instead of 4-1, he's going to have 1-4.
The Jaguars should go and they should sign Matt Moore this offseason.
Of course, the $65 million or whatever he got paid last time.
Oh yeah. My God. So they're 3,100, so they're not even that cheap. I mean, I don't know. Let's start building the lineup, and we'll see where we spend our
mid price. I mean, what are you gonna? I'm not gonna go down to the Bears and Browns.
That's where I'm at. Like, I feel like
down. And sorry, go ahead.
I feel like that's the thing is like this week. I feel like there's no defenses. I mean, you can go the Bengals at 32, but that's still pricey. Once you get below like 3,000, there is like nothing that I like.
Well, the majority of them are on the road, and then the majority of them are on the road in either high-scoring affairs or by being dogs by quite a bit. There's not a lot down there.
Yeah, we can go with Oakland if we want to double down on attacking Andrew Luck. I don't mind that. They rush the passer, and I'd still think that there's a chance if Luck doesn't play well early in the game that he could get behind and make some mistakes. So if you're going to go under 3,000, I think you can probably go to Oakland at 2,800 if you really want to get someone at low ownership.
It is outdoors too. So Luck last week in Minnesota, it was an indoor game. But I mean, it's Oakland. It's going to be nice weather, but it's still outside. So Luck is an indoor quarterback. So let's build a lineup and we'll see where it takes us to see, if we have the room for one of the higher price defenses or whatever. All right. So I think Joe, you're first this week.
I'll go with Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas. I love it. And remember, guys, this is a tournament lineup. This is not a cash lineup. Do not go out there and put this in 50-50s or head-to-heads. This is purely a tournament lineup. By the way, I had a friend tell me that our tournament lineup cashed last week that we made.
Yeah, should have crushed.
Yeah.
Our Breeze Cook stack. Who else did we have?
We had McCoy in there. I wish we would have put Ty Montgomery in it, man. That could have been huge. Because I had Ty Montgomery in the cash lineup. I did. All right, so I'm just going to go. I'm getting Antonio Brown. I told you guys I was playing him, so I'm just going to get that out of the way.
And you know where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron Brate.
You're not fading the chalk.
Nope.
Didn't even give me a chance to play Antonio Gates, you bastard.
No. No, you know what? I'll leave Antonio Gates there for you. Fine.
No, it's okay.
No, too late. It's fine.
Well,
I'm changing my pick.
I'm gonna totally screw us if I pick Antonio Gates. I know it, but I really feel like it's now or never for him.
It's a tournament play, like you said. So Cameron Brate is cash, and we're going for a tournament play. So I'm taking him out. You can do Antonio Gates when we come back to you, and so I'm going to
who's your pick then?
I'm going to force our hand by taking his wide receiver and take Ted Ginn.
Ted Ginn, nice. That's good. Yeah, I like it a lot because I think Ted Ginn, if I'm not mistaken, he dominated Atlanta last year.
He just dominates the end of the year for some reason.
Yeah, well, they started using him in the way that they should have been all year. I don't really understand what the hell they were doing with over the first 11 weeks, he had a 13-yard average depth of target, which is like a possession wide receiver role, which is stupid. But now, since that time, it's like over 20 yards. So,
and you always feel kind of dirty using Ted Ginn, which is kind of
a little bit, but it's okay.
Do we have enough to go up for Breeze, you think?
Oh, we could always make it happen. We just have to get some cheaper running backs.
Yeah, let's play Breeze.
With the Ted Ginn part, yeah.
So I don't really want to play Cam Newton.
All right. Is Latavius Murray? That's not cheap enough. So if we're gonna go down in running backs, I can't play Ingram because we already have. We could game stack it, I suppose, or we can go. So I'm gonna talk to you guys about this one. So do we go? I have Deion Lewis, I have Crowell or McKinnon.
Do we need to go that low?
It's pretty cheap because like our defense, if we want to spend up,
if you plug in a defense, if you plug in the Bills, for example, and Antonio Gates, we still have 54 or 66 per the last three positions.
Are you guys gonna hate? Are you gonna hate me?
Gates? Is that something that's happening?
That's what I'm saying. Are you gonna hate me if I pick Gates?
No, we know you're gonna pick Gates. It's a tournament lineup.
That's what I'm saying. I don't want you guys to be mad at me because like I want to pick Gates.
You say this every week. Last week you're like, I really want Mike Evans, so I don't want you guys to be mad at me.
Yeah,
it's true. I should just get the hell away from it. Like Mike Evans sucked.
Okay, Antonio Gates it is. He's in the lineup.
I was one catch away from losing that tournament from Evans last week, so I was pretty happy about him sucking.
All right, so Gates it is. I'll take Gates because you guys are allowing me to do so. So Jake, go ahead.
Make me bang my head against a wall over here. Let's see. Wait, did we skip
running
Joe?
Backs?
Oh no,
I think
Breeze.
You got Breeze, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, let me jump over to running backs. I will say, you know what? Screw it, Todd Gurley.
All right. All right. So let's see. We have 43-33 a player. Joe, we got a running back, flex, and defense, so we got to get cheap here.
Let's go with Frank Gore, running back. I think that should leave us in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I'm good with that. All right.
Alfred Blue.
So let's see. So if we on defense,
Bills 3,100. We're left with 5,100 left over.
Who's in the 5,100 range is the question.
Sanu, Rawls, Smith, Watkins, Farrow, Coleman, Kelsey, Henry, Richard, and continue on from there.
I'm trying to see if we went down even further. So if we went down to 47 or 46, we can get Allen Robinson. Then
no.
What do you mean no?
I'm not. Yeah, I veto Allen Robinson.
Wait, hold on. If I went, so wait, it's Joe's pick.
No, I just picked Frank Gore.
Oh, you did. That's right. So if I pick Allen Robinson, you're stuck with 3,600 for a defense.
We don't need to go for 3,600. You could do. Well, let's just see. And all, no kidding aside, let's just see. So if you plugged in your Raiders defense at 28, well, that would open up at flex. So that would open up. Doug Martin, nope. Devontae Adams,
no.
Moncrief.
That's an ugly range. I don't like it. Spencer Ware's a decent play, but
I'd rather just play Hopkins at 52.
Ugh.
Tom Savage does one thing, actually two things. Targets the living hell out of DeAndre Hopkins and just throws the ball deep every single time.
Well, Adam Jones and Drake Kirkpatrick combined, they allow 9 yards per reception. Like that's
I don't care. That's good. Tom Savage is going to throw 40 times downfield over 20 yards a time. So anyway, what were you doing about the?
I swear, I really, man.
Put in Allen Robinson?
I'm
not
right now.
Oh, it's fine. I'm not playing this damn lineup, so you go ahead.
Now I'm debating in between Meredith and Allen Robinson.
I'd rather get on board with Cam Meredith than Allen Robinson, but either way, you're fine. I'm not playing it.
All right, then I'm going Allen Robinson just because you said that.
Okay.
Someone play it. Win money.
Well, we didn't pick a defense.
No, well, that's 3,600.
I guess.
Yeah, go the Patriots.
At least some on the table. Oh, Patriots, yeah.
Yeah, they fit. So right there. So we have Breeze at quarterback. We have Todd Gurley and Frank Gore as our running backs. Wide receiver core is Michael Thomas, Antonio Brown, Ted Ginn. Tight end Antonio Gates. Flex is Allen Robinson.
This is gross.
And the defense is the Patriots.
This is gross.
Okay, when Allen Robinson has 100 yards and a touchdown.
If this hits big, I'll be dead silent next week. I'll let you pick.
So wait a minute, who would you guys rather play over Allen Robinson? That's my question.
Anybody.
I really don't think so. I don't at 4,600. I don't know if you have that upside. And he's playing against So he's playing against Tennessee, who's going to be down Jason McCourty too. So they're Antoine Blake and who's the other starting corner now?
Duty McSuckface. I don't know.
But yeah, basically. What the hell is it? Now it's going to aggravate me.
I'm pulling it up right now. I tell you, he's terrible. Whoever it is.
Well, they're terrible to begin with. Let's see.
Sims.
Yeah, so Bryce McCain and Antoine Blake are going to be the starting cornerbacks, and both of them allow a 60% catch rate. McCain allows a touchdown every 11 and a half targets. So, yeah.
Doesn't McCain stay in the slot? I thought LaShawn Sims steps up.
He is, but now that McCourty's down, they might slide him outside because LaShawn Sims.
Sure.
Yeah, he hasn't been very good either. He's played some snaps recently, but he hasn't been very good. So,
man, I'd almost rather just play Marquise Lee just because no one's going to play him after last week. Yeah, he's your best receiver, and last week he had,
I hate you guys.
No catches. But I mean, I'm on board. I wrote up Allen Robinson this week for like the first time all year. So, well, since the beginning of the year when everyone wanted to play him. But
how about Michael Floyd? We can submit drunks.
They actually might cut him. Did you hear like that? Bill Belichick came out today and during his press conference. Are
you sure? Even after he seemed so contrite in his conference, last week is last week. Yeah, way to follow up on being apologetic there, buddy.
No, he said that basically that the report came out that Michael Floyd was like extremely drunk and he might actually spend time in jail, according to Arizona law. Because of what his blood alcohol content was at. So they're saying like,
it was almost, what was it, 3 times the limit?
Yeah, it was like, I think over 3 times the legal limit, which is just not good. Not very good.
Pushing.
Yeah, and it was like right down the street from my house where he was arrested. It's like 20 minutes away from my house.
You should have given him a ride home.
I should have. You should have hit me up, man. I would have given him a ride. But Allen Robinson, I believe in you, buddy. Get it done. Antonio Gates, it's now or never. Make it happen.
I hope somebody copies down this lineup because I'm not touching it with it.
This is the all regression lineup.
I'm going to tell one of my friends to play this lineup.
Todd Gurley, Allen Robinson, and Antonio Gates in the same lineup. Nothing could go wrong.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing will go wrong. There's been ones where I've liked
and cancel.
And they suck. All right. So that is the end of the show, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As we get further into the show, we started to disagree, and I think that makes for better listening. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. Obviously touching on defense a little bit. We have one more show to do, guys. So we're going to do next week, and then we're going to become fans of the NFL for the playoffs. But it's been a blast, like doing shows with you guys. Do you guys have anything to say? Jake, anything to say before we get out of here for the day?
I hate your lineup.
I love you too, man.
Merry Christmas to everybody. We didn't even mention this Christmas on Sunday. So
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating.
Yes. Nat King Cole is number 1. Mariah Carey is number 2. If anybody doesn't like Mariah Carey, you're lying to yourself.
Joe?
I don't know if I can top that.
I don't know how you follow that. Yeah. All right. So, guys, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever holiday you're celebrating. Have fun with your family. Don't get too mad if your lineups are bad because, again, it's just 1 week. We have week 17 where it's going to be a different week with we have to worry about players being benched and whatnot. But, that's part of the research that goes into it. So it could be a very profitable week, kind of like preseason DFS. So we'll be back next week for you guys one last time. So until next time, guys, lights out.